Awesome. So we are going to go ahead and get started. So like I said earlier, my name is Francisco Lugo. I'm currently serving as the Director of Fraternity Sorority Life here at Georgia Southern. So this during this presentation, we're specifically going to be talking about the National Pan-Hellenic Council chapters and also the Multicultural Greek Councils on both campuses. So with that said, we're going to do a quick round of introductions to the staff and some of our student leaders, and then we're just going to go right into the presentation. Just to kind of bearings, if there's any questions and any things as we go through the presentation, feel free to use the chat function to put any questions, any concerns there. But also, once we're done, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions as we go through this presentation. So with that said, Laura, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and we'll go from there?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Donato, and I serve as the Assistant Director of Fraternity Sorority Life, and I am primarily at the Armstrong campus.
Kobe, you want to do a quick introduction?
Hi, how y'all doing, everybody? My name is Kobe Stringer. I'm a member of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, and I'm the president of the National Pan-Hellenic Council at Georgia Southern.
So basically, a quick overview of the community. We currently oversee 40 plus chapters on both the Statesboro and Armstrong campus. So that is really the perspective that we are coming in from this perspective or this presentation. So as we dive deep into the conversation, just know that we're going to be providing some high-level information, but also we are going to be more granular, specifically to each campus as it relates to the National Pan-Hellenic Council and the MGC Council.
So we believe that joining a fraternity or sorority is one of the best experiences that you can have throughout your college career. And if this experience is done right, the ability of what you're going to get from that membership experience with leadership opportunities, service, philanthropy, network even coming out of that, and meeting other brothers or sisters from other chapters across the country is what we believe really helps your experience as a student and helps you grow and learn who you are as a person, so that way you're prepared for the real world once you graduate.
So with that said, this is a quick overview of both campuses. So at the Armstrong campus, we have 10 chapters, 6 fraternities, 6 sororities, 4 fraternities, which again encompass the 3 governing councils that we have at the Armstrong campus, which are the College Pan-Hellenic Council, the Interfraternity Council, and the Multicultural Greek Council. But then in Statesboro, we have 32 chapters, 12 sororities, 12 fraternities, or 20 fraternities, can't speak today. And then we also have 3 governing councils that oversee these chapters, which are the Interfraternity Council, the National Pan-Hellenic Council, and then the Pan-Hellenic Association.
And so looking at our Armstrong campus and our Multicultural Greek Council, which is where our 4 organizations are housed. And this is an umbrella organization. And so just a quick little note, we do have a combination of some of our National Pan-Hellenic chapters that fall into this council. We are currently working to figure out ways to make sure that we are getting our councils established, so that way we have an NPHC and an MGC to house those chapters that should be a part of that council. So just a little side note about our chapters here. But there are 4, and we are focusing more on our multicultural and Latino focus is what these chapters look into for their organization and their values and their service and what they give back to the surrounding area. And so with intake, so with our MGC intake process, again, these are our 4 chapters that we have on campus. We have Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, Lambda Theta Phi, which is our fraternity, and Zeta Phi Beta. So they're the chapters that represent the Multicultural Greek Council. And so one of our open intake events that we'll have, a kind of an informational, will be hosting the meet and greet. And so right now this is scheduled for September 3rd. We have a little bit of a caveat with our COVID-19 update later on in the presentation about what some of our events may look like. But for anybody that's interested in joining one of these chapters, we highly encourage you to attend this event so that you can learn about membership requirements, get to know the chapters a little bit better. And again, this is that that initial step that you'll be able to have to see them and kind of put your face and name to that organization and introduce yourself, and ask some of the questions about just membership in general. And so that will definitely be an area where you'll be able to meet those organizations.
Hey everybody, it's Kobe again. So the National Pan-Hellenic Council at Georgia Southern is a collaborative organization of historically African American fraternities and sororities, which commonly referred to as BGLOs. These 9 organizations are sometimes referred to as the Divine Nine, which you'll commonly hear us saying. And the 7 organizations governed by the NPHC on the Statesboro campus have different requirements for memberships. The NPHC will typically host a general information, which we call NPHC 101 or 102, depending on the semester, for prospective students to address and answer all questions about organization and what membership means. So the chapters that we have here are Alpha Kappa Alpha, Alpha Phi Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, Iota Phi Theta, Omega Psi Phi, Phi Beta Sigma, Sigma Gamma Rho, and Zeta Phi Beta. The NPHC will be hosting its open information session to answer all questions you have about membership requirements, and you must attend this informational session to actually join one of our organizations. As of now, our date for NPHC 101 is September 9th, 2020. So continue to watch our Instagram page as well to see more details about that and how you can get your tickets for it. When it comes down to intake, each chapter will determine when they're ready to bring in new members, and this process is called intake. To find out about a specific chapter, you would have to follow that chapter specifically to see what they have going on, or check in with the Fraternity Sorority Life office, because usually when we have things, they have the information of what we're doing in there.
So as Laura kind of mentioned earlier, right now we are really navigating how the fall semester is going to take place here at Georgia Southern when it comes to both campuses, and it's specifically around recruitment intake and how we are going to be operating from a fraternity sorority life perspective. So as we continue to plan ahead, we'll be letting everybody know about what that's going to look like moving forward, specifically with the meet and Greek, but also with NPHC in what formats they are actually going to be taking shape for the fall semester.
So when we look at bare minimum requirements for joining an organization, and again, just knowing that some of our organizations within NPHC and MGC do not take first semester freshmen, they want you to establish a college GPA, get a little bit of that university experience under your belt before you would be eligible for intake or membership. But from an office standpoint, our bare minimum qualifications for joining an organization, incoming freshmen need to have a 2.75 high school GPA that's calculated by the Office of Admissions. And then students that have earned 12 college credits or more need to have a 2.50 overall GPA. And so we do not make exceptions with this GPA requirement. We really strive for academics and fraternity and sorority life, and we hold our students to those higher standards when it comes to academics, and that's why we set that standard, and we do not make exceptions on that. Once you've been given membership, you have to complete a hazing prevention module. That is part of your membership requirements. So that new member process or going through intake, things like that, you have to complete that. And so just to note that dual enrolled students are not eligible to join any chapter on our organization or any chapter on our campus. And then you need to join an organization that is established at your home campus. So if your primary campus is Statesboro, you are only going to be eligible to join one of the chapters that is established at Statesboro, and vice versa for Armstrong. We just know that it's easier for you as a new member to join that organization that's on your primary campus. We're not worrying about that commuting back and forth and things like that. So we're looking out for the safety of the student there for joining an organization at their home campus. So that's just something to note, because sometimes that can get a little confusing since we do have one office that oversees 2 communities.
So this is more like high and low when it comes to the average dues for each chapter on each campus. So basically you can think for if you're interested in joining one of our NPHC chapters here in Statesboro, that's going to range from 900 to about 2,200. And if you are interested in joining either one of the NPHC chapters or MGC chapters at the Armstrong campus, that's going to range from 425 to 1,500. And Laura is going to go in a little bit in depth to kind of give you the averages so you have a better understanding of what that looks like.
Yeah, so at Statesboro, our average from our chapters that we're looking at there can be about $1,200. And this is typically the most expensive semester that you will pay for. There's some things that you're paying for as a new member. There's some insurance policies and things like that you're paying for the headquarters side, taking your new member test, things like that. So that's typically the financial requirement that you're going to look for, that average piece of about $1,200. And at Armstrong, our average, again, is the same thing. Those new member fees that you're paying into is about $1,100 for the first semester. Typically, we see that our dues decrease a good amount moving into your second semester and on. And so your first semester is usually going to be your most expensive semester that you pay for. And then afterwards, it'll go down a lot in that requirement. And I think Kobe can talk to that a little bit too, if you would like to.
Hey, yeah, guys. So how our organizations work is you pay what's called your initiation dues. Your initiation dues are always higher than the rest of your dues as you continue your life inside of our organizations. A lot of our organizations, your initiation dues are different depending on what semester you go into it, because for some of our organizations, your initiation dues does cover your dues while you're still in college. Some of them are not like that though. But usually after you pay your initiation dues the following semesters, it's a lot less, because usually you're not paying national dues, you're just doing chapter dues. And after that, it'll just be national and chapter, which are a lot less than initiation.
Thanks, Kobe. So yeah, that's pretty much all the things that we wanted to go over, because we wanted to give you all the opportunity to ask questions of us or our students who are on this call, to get a better feel for that. I would say that one thing I would hint at is that, especially at the Armstrong campus, we are currently in conversations with several groups to add to the MGC portion of that. And also, when we consolidated with the Armstrong campus, the Armstrong campus, we knew that we were gonna create the National Pan-Hellenic Council at the Armstrong campus eventually. So we are currently in that process of doing that. However, we just also want to make sure that we are leaving our Multicultural Greek Council in a good space as well. So those are conversations that are currently happening. So eventually at the Armstrong campus, we will be having a National Pan-Hellenic Council and a Multicultural Greek Council as well. So just wanted to put that out there as well, just in case anybody had any questions about that. So with that said, any questions? I guess, like I said, you can feel free to put them in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question. So the question that I put in the chat is, how will recruitment work this year? We don't know. So that's something that we're having a good conversation with all the councils that we oversee on both campuses of how actual recruitment is going to happen. I think that right now, just last week, the university released the plans for opening up in the fall. So we're looking through that and see what are the things that we need to do from our end to make sure that we're abiding by those different scenarios that are in that plan. With that said, we're also working with our national headquarters and regional officers from all councils to make sure and have a good understanding of how they're actually going to be doing recruitment or intake in the fall semester. I know that last spring, because of the whole COVID-19 situation, some organizations did do virtual initiations. So that's something that we want to get a good handle. So once we really know how this is going to go. We will make sure that information is out there. However, I can tell you that for both the Multicultural Greek Council and at least the NPHC Council, the main thing is attending that Meet the Greeks, but also that NPHC 101. Because that's really going to be where you get a lot of the information as far as, again, information about each chapter, what the requirements are, who's is going to be doing intake that semester. So we definitely want to make sure that you're doing that and attending those. So once there, it's really up to the individual chapters, and they typically have informational meetings that are open and then some other are closed. So as individuals, you'll attend those and get a better feel for that organization and eventually decide to apply to become a member in that organization.
To clarify for incoming freshmen, so if you are interested in joining one of our NPHC or MGC chapters, they do not usually take first semester freshmen. They want you to establish a college GPA. And so again, they might not have intake that first semester, which can work out for you because they might be ready for intake in the spring, which would work because you've established a college GPA. Now, if you're talking about our chapters in our Pan-Hellenic or our Interfraternity Council, you can join as a freshman. You just need to have the minimum GPA coming into college of that 2.75.
So we're getting questions about moving. So the reality is the only group that is basically typically moves in early is our Pan-Hellenic Association here at the Statesboro campus. Every other council does not move in early. So typically these recruitments happen after school starts. So basically, if you go back to our presentation, NPHC 101 is September 9th. So that's well within the school year, like basically. Yeah, so just know that again, it's really specific only to the Statesboro campus, and only the Pan-Hellenic Association is the ones that move in early. And right now we're working with our housing office to see if that's going to be a possibility. So we just want to make sure that we have a good understanding of what their plan is to move in incoming freshmen into their residence halls. So once we know that, we'll make an announcement on our end as far as what does that look like specifically, again, to Pan-Hellenic on the Statesboro campus. Some other questions that we typically get asked is when is the right time for joining? I think, like Laura said, I think with NPHC and MGCs, that's a little bit different because they typically join in different times, but it goes back to the idea that it's really up to the student to determine when it's the right time for them to go into that intake process within any council. I think that that's something that we encourage. If they want to get involved, they can get involved depending on that chapter requirements and from a national perspective. But then we also, if they want to wait, we also encourage them to wait and get a good GPA because they will be more marketable to chapters. And Kobe, if you want to jump in and talk about that piece from an NPHC perspective here in Statesboro, that would be great.
Yeah. So, and are you talking about how rush works, like pertaining to the NPHC, or were you more pertaining towards the last question that got asked?
Yeah, we're talking more about intake for NPHC, and as far as when typically people join, because we know that some chapters do take first semester freshmen, but some don't, and that's really up to the chapter to decide whether they want to take an incoming freshman or not.
Yeah, so the best way to look at that, guys, if you already know what organization you're looking forward to, the best way to do it is going to that chapter's social media or their website and actually looking at their requirements, or even going to the national website and looking at the requirements, even though the chapter may have something added, but usually you can find out from the national website. So with our organizations, after NPHC 101, is usually you'll start seeing chapters independently or going to post when they're going to have their interest meetings, or for some of the sororities when they're going to have their rush. And from that's when you'll see it. There's really not any set time for it. And also, Taylor, for your question, it just depends on what chapter you're going into. And it also depends on how many credits you came in with. So a lot of our chapters, they may say you have to be a second semester freshman. So that's usually 12 to 15 hours. So if you already have 15 hours completed and you have the GPA, then a lot of chapters will allow you to come in. But there are also some chapters who have in their guidelines that you have to get your hours at Statesboro. So it's just all about which chapter you're going to, and you just have to look in and see exactly what they require.
So just to go back real quick to answer the question about the differences between the councils. So if you think about it, we have 6 councils on both 3 on each campus, right? So these councils are basically, think about them as governing bodies of these chapters that fall under them. So typically, the way that that's kind of split up is based on their national affiliation with a national umbrella organization, which is what we call them. So there's, in theory, trying to think here, 4 or 5 national umbrella organizations that these chapters are part of. Some organizations are part of multiple umbrella organizations, and some are just part of one. So that's really going to depend on where the chapter is structured or organized at the college campus. So the National Pan-Hellenic is, again, our traditionally African-American fraternities and sororities, and basically our multicultural groups are basically, those are based on multicultural ideals and beliefs, or specific to the Latinx or Latinx community as well. So that's the main distinction between them. And I know that that's a little bit hard to kind of grasp, but I think that's why we can definitely go back to the slides of what chapters are under each council, and you can also find this information on our Facebook page, on our office page, that you can go check and see who falls under what. So if you are interested in joining a college Pan-Hellenic or part of the Pan-Hellenic Association, which are typically our white sororities on either the Statesboro campus or the Armstrong campus, that presentation is going to be on Thursday. So we encourage you to come back and listen to that, and we'll have a very different conversation, just because the way that they get people into their chapters is very different compared to what our NPHC and MGC does, which again, we call it intake, with what are typically Pan-Hellenic groups, what they do is recruitment, if that makes sense. So Kobe, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience within your chapter, but also with your leadership position within the NPHC?
Yeah, I definitely don't mind. So I would have to ask though, give me something to go off of when you say my experiences.
What has your membership been like in your chapter, currently your local chapter?
Okay, got you. So first, also remember that most of our organizations are lifelong commitment. So it's something that you never stop doing. I actually did join my organization my second semester here at college, and now I'm in year 3. So since I've been in, the work definitely doesn't stop. It's all about keeping your GPA up, and it's all about actually influencing and changing the community. Now that I got my leadership position in the NPHC, I think it's just opened a platform to do more. You have to remember that our organizations are we're always thought to be on-campus leaders. So whenever you join an organization, you're not just yourself anymore. You're always representing someone else. So we always look for leadership, and that's what we expect people to be. We do hold ourselves to a higher standard. We are not elitists by far. We like to talk to everyone, and some people are kind of shy even inside of our organization. But at the end of the day, we're just people, just like everybody else. But I will say that does give you a bigger platform. So you can't just, say whatever you want to say anymore, because it's not just regular people watching you anymore. And sometimes when you speak, a lot of people try to take your words and take them as the words of your organization. So you just have to be careful with that. But outside of that, being a part of these organizations is really serving your community, bettering yourself, and creating an environment that promotes growth and learning.
Awesome. Any other questions?
I just want to let everyone know, if y'all didn't get it, if y'all had any questions directly related to the NPHC, I did drop our email in the chat, which is nphc-statesboro@georgiasouthern.edu. So if you guys have any type of questions about it, then you can just email us and I'll respond, or someone from my e-board will respond. So a hazing prevention module. Usually in our chapters, we already talk about hazing prevention on the national side. They usually require us to do it, but Georgia Southern also makes students, once they join the organization, take the hazing prevention model. The hazing prevention model is so that everyone can be educated, because we don't allow hazing at all. And as someone joining the organization, you can't allow someone to haze you, or you will get in trouble as well. So the hazing modules are so you can protect yourself and protect the people that you're around, to be educated and know what's going on. So at Georgia Southern, no one should be hazing you, and you shouldn't let anyone haze you. If you're letting someone haze you when you come into the organizations, we feel like you're in just as much fault. So always remember that, no hazing.
So with that, Kobe brings up a great point. I think that one of the things that we also are very mindful is that students are going to make up their own decisions, right? So I think from an office perspective, that's where we hold them accountable. And we do this in multiple ways. Again, we have a great collaboration with the Office of Student Conduct, which helps navigate investigations and things like that. One of the things that we've done since 2015 is on our website. If you go, there's a link that's called chapter status. So you can always go to that page and look at the statuses of each chapter. We keep that very updated, and then you can also see a kind of a history of things that chapters have gotten in trouble for. So we are being very transparent when it comes to that. So if you ever want to find out what the current, whatever chapter you're interested in joining, what the current status is, you can always go to that page. The other thing that we also have on our website, which is under our resource tab, is a grade report that we pull every semester, and we make that public. So you can also see how each chapter is doing academically. This semester, the average GPA for the community on both campuses was a 3.31, and it's been the highest that it's been since I've been here, which is a great indication of how the community adapted to the COVID-19 situation that happened in the spring. I know that there were some concerns about how students would do in an all virtual setting, but they performed very, very well. So I think we're very happy about that. So we want to make sure that we keep that in the forefront. Hence why we don't make exceptions when it comes to those GPA standards that we have from a university perspective, but also the chapters then have their own standards that you also would have to meet. So Kobe, this is I'll put it to you. The question was asked, requirements if joining sorority in an NPHC if you are a transfer student with a 3.1 GPA.
All right, so if you're a transfer student with a 3.1 GPA, you shouldn't too much have a problem, as long as you can meet the amount of credits that are required. Most of our chapter GPA, there's no one who has over a 2.5 requirement, and I think our highest minimum requirement is a 2.75. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. But always remember that our requirements are the minimum, guys, so I always shoot for the top, because here at Georgia Southern, and really Greek life everywhere when it comes to NPHC and our other councils, education is always first. So we have to remember that, like, we came to school to actually be in college. And also to Taylor, I would suggest that you do get on the calls, even if you're not interested in the other councils or organizations within those councils, simply for the fact that we all make up the Greek community. So you will have to work with those members, and it's good to learn about how they operate and the different things that they do as well. So always remember that when you're joining the NPHC organization, you're joining that chapter, you're joining the NPHC, and you're also joining the Greek community. So the more you know about the community that you're being a part of, the better you'll be able to work inside of it.
So yeah, so I would also add to that again, all these SOAR lives are open to anybody. So if you want to learn more about each specific council, feel free to join. We will kind of redo all of them again in July. So we will start again with the parents presentation, and then go into the different councils that we have. So feel free to go ahead and sign up for them and learn about them. I think that for us, our intent is to provide as much information as we can to all of you, so that way you can make a decision of what chapter is it that you want to join. Because really, it's like Kobe said, this is a lifelong commitment, and we just want to make sure that you're making the right decision for you. So we just want to make sure that, again, we're providing as much information to get you ready as you are coming into Southern on either campus. So just to know that, again, we definitely encourage you to reach out and get as much information as you can. I will also, if you look at the chat, we've added a couple links. So the first link that we added is a link to our Facebook group that's specifically for SOAR this year. So if there's any questions and concerns, feel free to join that, and we'll be adding a lot of resources and information in that space. But it's also a space that you can ask questions, no matter if you're a parent or incoming student, no matter what that could be, you can feel free to do that. Laura added the link directly to our resource page. So that's where you can find a lot of our policies, our grade report, and all that other fun stuff that comes with that piece that we handle here at Southern. And then I also just posted our website for SOAR specifically for this year, since it's a little bit different. So you'll see some of the sessions that we had, the ones that we've already held, the ones that are coming up, but also more information or presentations really about the community itself. And we'll then start linking these presentations as we go in as well. And also these sessions are being put on live, and then they will definitely then exist on our YouTube page. So if you ever want to go back and listen to them and get a little more insight in that, you can definitely revisit those. And then we also are working with our students to be a little more creative in getting them in front of you all, so you can ask them questions, because we know that there's some things that you would want to ask us, but then there's some things you would want to ask your peers as you're coming in. So we also want to make sure that we're providing for that space as well. But yeah, any other questions for us? Seeing none, again, feel free to reach out to us if there's any questions and concerns. Our website is there, so just know that that's something that you can take a look at whenever you want. Keep up with us on social media. We also put a lot of information out there as well. And then make sure that you're also following our social media accounts for each council, because they're also providing information. And as we get closer to the fall semester, the start of the fall semester, they will also be providing additional information as we start looking at how we're going to be opening it up for the fall semester as well. So make sure that you're doing that. But with that said, enjoy the rest of your day, and have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.